December is always an active month. This month, not letting down. I think we're going to see more storms across the country. We've got an active jet stream. We've got one storm moving through the central part of the country here. This could actually bring some ice to some areas as we head toward the weekend. And then into next week, another system that moves back here into the west. There's a lot of question as to where this storm goes. We're going to talk a lot about that today. Thanks for checking the video out today, guys. If it's your first time over here on the channel, I appreciate you coming by. Over 13,000 of you have subscribed. We passed that number just yesterday, so thank you very much. And I loved reading your stories that you dropped in the comments of yesterday's video. And if you want to drop a comment below, I asked, what's the most memorable snowstorm you can remember that really had an impact on you and you remember? So a lot of folks bringing up the blizzard of 78. We talked about the superstorm of 93 and a lot of others. So thanks for your comments. I always love reading them. Let's talk about the energy that we're looking at this week. This right here, this is something to keep an eye on across the central United States. This could bring some ice to parts of Nebraska, up into Iowa, maybe even parts of Wisconsin and Illinois. Still some question about that as we watch this energy as it moves across the country. Let's take it a little slower. We'll start here in the east, then we'll work our way west. We've got our system that's moving through the northeast through the overnight hours. That's bringing heavy rain, heavy snow to these areas, especially across northern parts of New England as the precipitation ends. And now we've got our winds coming off the lakes. Lake effect snow warnings, winter storm warnings, in effect downwind of the lakes. There's going to be a lot of snow, especially downwind of Lake Erie and Ontario. Some of these snow bands really start to get set up here, just targeting the Tug Hill Plateau, also just south of Buffalo. A lot of this staying south of the city, though, but I'm telling you, this one off of Lake Ontario looks impressive, 2 to 3 feet possible. Again, near Watertown, and more snow back here just south of Buffalo. So we're talking about places like Dunkirk, down towards Ripley, even over towards Springville. So Watertown, I still think the chance for us seeing maybe up to 2 to 3 feet. Impressive. And this is going to extend pretty far away from the lake too. So up here into the mountains, we're going to see at least a foot of snow or more. And we talked about those high totals here off of Lake Erie. Let's move west. Let's talk about Michigan. We're getting the snow here that will start to pick up as we head into Thursday. It's going now, but it's going to continue to roll as we head through the overnight hours and really pick up as our winds start to spin out of the northwest across the UP. We're also going to see that northwest flow, west-northwest flow almost off of Lake Michigan. And then there comes your snow streamers or your snow bands really piling up here in the UP of Michigan, also here near Traverse City, just east of that. Some of these snow bands will be really impressive too into parts of Ontario as our winds start to shift a little bit out of the west. Major impacts to travel, especially if you get caught under some of those heavier snow bands and close to a foot or more also up here into parts of the UP of Michigan with lighter amounts here on the east side of the state. I kind of skipped over Cleveland, didn't mean to, but most of the snow here northeast of town up on I-90, not much here across the rest of Ohio. Most of that, again, downwind of Lake Erie. As we deposit that snow up here towards Erie, we could see close to 15, maybe even in some cases 20 inches if you can get caught underneath those really heavy snow bands, which certainly is possible. All right, let's go to the central United States. We've got some action here too. We've got this weak disturbance that's dropping in from the northwest. It's going to bring a light stripe of snow, and I mean, it's going to be very small too here from South Dakota, possibly enhancing a little bit as we head into Thursday across southern parts of Iowa, central parts of Illinois, into Indiana, and eventually that does move off to the east over into parts of Ohio. It's not going to be a lot of snow out of this weak system, and eventually that might bring you a few flurries here into parts of Pennsylvania. Again, snow totals very light, trace to an inch somewhere under that band of snow. We might get some enhancement up to a couple of inches, maybe right here in this very sharp band across southern parts of Iowa and central parts of Illinois, and then that weakens as it continues to move off to the east. Things do get a little bit interesting, though, as we move into the weekend. Now we've got Gulf moisture starting to return into Texas. Clouds start to increase. We start to see some rain showers here, first along the coast. Eventually that moves north up towards Dallas, Austin. We get the showers going here. They're going to be scattered, Oklahoma City, but you've got some cold air that's trapped in here at the surface. So across northern parts of Kansas, as we head into Friday afternoon and Friday evening, there may be just enough cold air in place. You can see it here for some freezing rain, some sleet, maybe some snow on the far northwest side of this. It looks like a light precipitation event, but it doesn't take much ice to cause a real big problem. So that's going to be a concern here across parts of Nebraska. Eventually, I think into parts of Iowa. I was looking at some of the numbers here on the models. Again, not a lot of ice. It seems like most of it will be north of Omaha, but still a tenth of an inch of ice, even a couple of hundredths of an inch of ice could cause some issues. And then just to the east of that, we're going to see that spread out here into parts of Iowa. Could go as far north as parts of Minnesota, maybe up towards Rochester, but Des Moines over to Cedar Rapids, Dubuque. I don't know that it gets over to Madison into Wisconsin and maybe over to Davenport, some ice, but this starts to fade as you head over here into northern Illinois, over toward Rockford and down towards Peoria. Just a little bit of ice possible out of this. Let's go even further west. This is our next storm that will impact the rest of the country, making landfall here into the northwest with some rain, some heavy mountain snow here too. It could really add up into the Cascades and into the Sierra. Feet of snow possible with this one, and right behind it, another one. Onshore flow here. Now, your snow levels will probably rise out ahead of this, and then as your cold air back here moves ashore, boom, they crash back down, so the heavy snow picks up again into the mountains, and over the next couple of days, I feel like a broken record, feet of snow here into the California mountains, the northern mountains. Southern California mountains, not a lot going on here, and some of that will move into the Intermountain West, too, with more snow still falling up into British Columbia along those coastal ranges there. All right, so now let's recenter. Let's take a look at the rest of the week ahead. We're going to look at the European and the GFS model. Sometimes I get accused of not talking about certain parts of the country. This is the entire United States. So find where you are on this map, and I'm going to take you through the next couple of days. We've got the lake effect snow going here, high pressure building into the south. There's their next storm across the west, bringing rain and snow here as we head into Friday. Friday afternoon, the rain and snow picks up here, high pressure building into the east. That's going to cut the lake effect snow off, and there's your ice we talked about, building into parts of Nebraska, Iowa, maybe even arguably parts of Minnesota that we talked about. Rain here on the south side of that into parts of East Texas, north into Oklahoma, Missouri, parts of Kansas. Again, in Kansas, we could start with some ice, and that changes over to some rain. And then in the northeast, we're dry. The lake effect gets shut down, and now we're wedging some of that cool air, at least cooler than average, down the east side of the mountains, while in the upper levels, your winds start to come in like this, bringing that moisture. So you have that shallow layer of cold air at the surface. That could bring some freezing rain, I think, early in the event, sometime Sunday night into early Monday morning here into the valleys of parts of northern West Virginia, western Virginia, and then up into parts of Pennsylvania. This warm air eventually scours out the cold air in the valleys, and then the European tries to develop an area of low pressure here, heading into Monday night into Tuesday, putting some snow up into parts of Minnesota, and then really cranking that up as it heads toward the Hudson. And then by Tuesday, high pressure building in with another storm trying to get developed here on the south side with a cutoff low across parts of Oklahoma. We're looking at more than a week away. I don't believe this whatsoever, but it's interesting to see all of these dynamics coming together as we get toward the 20th and 21st. I think there's something to watch in that time frame. This is the GFS just for kicks. It's going to look a lot different than what I just showed you. Sunday through Monday, I think we're looking pretty close to being accurate, and this is probably what we're going to see. Where it goes to pieces is when you get really far out, but you kind of get the idea of what things are going to be looking like. The European had a pretty strong area of low pressure moving into Canada. The GFS, not so much. Another piece of energy splitting off to the south, pushing some rain here into the east. And then the GFS has another snowstorm coming into the west heading into Tuesday. I feel like that looks pretty good. And then it has your storm developing here, not so much a cutoff low, and then moving up toward the Great Lakes with that second piece of energy. So I think the question is, will the low cut off, and will it put enough cold air into parts of Oklahoma to put some snow down? I don't know that it does. And then the GFS just kind of goes bonkers with things that happen that probably won't happen. So the European keeps us active and cold heading into the 22nd and 23rd across the northeast with another storm moving into the west. And if you were to believe it day by day, which I don't, but this pattern of this northwest flow in the east, I think it's going to be cold for Christmas. Now, you might get this quick warm up, right, and then go back down cold, but the idea of a ridge across the west seems to be dominant with your trough in the east. Do we get some action in the subtropical jet? Do we get a little disturbance that can combine with some energy here to the north? And then now you got a big storm. Let's wait and see. I'll be on it. If you enjoyed this content, hope you'll come back. See you next time.